Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started. I'd like to introduce Cheryl Ciecko. She is a licensed architect and building science healthy building consultant, providing education and resources to professionals and individuals around the world. Motivated by a personal healthy journey, Cheryl uses her professional, educational, and experience, along with research related to air quality, moisture management, and building science, to help others identify and resolve building defects that can affect health and wellness. So let's give her a warm welcome.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so thanks for getting up early this morning after that great event last night. To join me here, we're going to talk about the fungus among us, moisture, mold, and dwelling well, and it does all come together. You heard who I am a little bit. What to expect today? I'm going to try to talk for 45 to 50 minutes so that we have time for questions. I'm going to share some of my key insights and secrets, solutions, of course, and then we'll get to questions and answers. And hopefully I'm going to do it in a way that's simple and understandable, because this is a really complex topic. And that's why it's a big problem. So these are the individual topics I'm going to talk about, just so you know where we are going through. What is building mold? Who's affected? Why buildings and why now? Why this wasn't coming up 30 years ago? How to identify potential building problems? Maybe your own home, maybe somewhere you work. And resources at the end. So there's going to be actionable steps here that you can, and hopefully some information that will be a light bulb moment for you. So just in terms of who's here, are you guys all from California?
Yes.
Yeah. Is anybody not from California? Where are you from?
Colorado.
Colorado, great. All right, I'm from Illinois, but I do spend time here, and as I said, I work remotely, so I have clients all over the world, all over the United States, and Canada as well, so it's everywhere. Any health practitioners? People that deal with, okay, we have one. Any scientists? I know we have a doctor. Anybody in the building world? Buildings, construction, a little bit. Yes, we talked at dinner. Is anybody confused about this? You guys feel like you're kind of starting to get it?
Kind of starting.
You're starting to get it. Okay, good. Well, hopefully this will be a final piece for you then. I've been licensed for over 30 years. I haven't been doing this for over 30 years, but I am type A, and I've always been trying to do the right thing in my work. I am a mom, and I've been exposed to many toxins. Didn't know that at the time, but it's not just in buildings, food, dental stuff. I have autoimmune disease, or I should say I had autoimmune disease. I actually don't have it anymore. I've had Lyme, had heavy metal exposure, and my family and I have used natural products and essential oils in our recovery. And we are thriving, I'm happy to say, and that's why I can be here. So I'm here to share the message that I learned starting in 2005. So for my license, I have to get continuing education. I go 12 hours a year. And I stumbled in 2005 onto a program on mold in commercial buildings. At the same time, my daughter, who was 10, was suffering with severe asthma. She had inhalers at home and at school. It just kind of came up in the past few months. And she had rashes, and then she started having migraine headaches. So we're doing CAT scans on her. 10. She couldn't play with her friends. She couldn't go to school. It all just came out of the blue, but we had moved into a different house a few months before. And I didn't put it all together until I was at this CE presentation. And they started talking about all the symptoms that you might not get better when you leave. I didn't know that. And I didn't know that you could have mold in your ductwork. I didn't know. But I learned there, and I came home and I looked at our ductwork. That was my house when we took the cover off. It was a 1950s house, and it had been rented and probably never had the ducts cleaned before. So if you look up what dust is, it's really nasty. Dust mites, fecal matter of dust mites, dead skin cells, dog hair, cat hair, whatever. And then I paid somebody to clean it. This is what my ducts look like after I paid somebody to clean it. That somebody was a scam. I researched, I did the homework, I called their references, but I didn't know what it was they were supposed to do myself. I trusted them. They had their certifications. They're still in business today. And I threw them out when I realized that they were closing up ducts they never cleaned. And I put my arm down and I pulled out a wad and they said it was clean and I said, you're done. You're out of here. And then they blew dust that had aspergillus mold. I had tested it throughout my entire house. I had 4 children, my husband was traveling. And that's my son. That's not the right kind of math to use. I've learned my lesson since then. And I wouldn't have your children do it, but I had nothing else to do. There's nothing I could do. 2014, that was 2005, we did recover, we figured it out, I hired the right people. Everybody was doing fairly well. My daughter was struggling through college, because as everybody knows who's been to college, mold central. So we moved her, I think, 2 or 3 times in college when she had reactions. But my husband and I were getting sick. So we were reaching our bucket overflowing. We'll talk a little bit more about this. So we're in a hyperbaric chamber here. So a lot of ours was heavy metal and lime, but I'm sure the other stuff had contributed. And my husband in particular, who's here, he's given out the brochures, ended up on disability. His eye wasn't coordinating with the other eye. So he had double vision for about 3 years. Everywhere he looked, he was disfigured. He was in a sales job. And you need eye contact for that. And he couldn't even get out of bed, actually. So today, he can see single vision. He's fine. We were told at the University of Michigan, Thyroid Eye Disease Center, that this was permanent. There was no way to fix it, and that he would never recover his vision. And there was no solution. So I'm telling you this to give you hope, and to share hope with other people. I have Sjogren's syndrome and lupus, and I was told I would always have it. Just this fall, the doctor said I went for a test because I had a rash, and they wanted me to check it out. And they don't find any evidence of me having autoimmune disease anymore. And they just said, well, you have no evidence right now. I was like, okay, well, I'm never having evidence. And I did 4 years on some very heavy-hitting drugs, going to all the major medical centers in Chicago, Rush, Northwestern, University of Chicago, before I realized that I was going to get sick from the stuff they were giving me. So we're doing great. And so you can too, so I want to know that you can feel good again. If people you love can feel good again, we're doing the things we want to do. And so congratulations for being here. Thank you. So we're going to talk about some insights that have gotten us here to where we are. And I talked about your bucket filling up, and other people in presentations have mentioned a barrel. I call it a bucket, so we all have some sort of a bucket where we can take in toxins, and some of them can get out. We can get rid of them. But eventually, there's more coming in than can get out. Or our going out gets compromised, and that actually happened to me. These are all the things that people have been talking about today and yesterday at this really wonderful conference. And then eventually the bucket overflows. I think in my husband's case, it was stress. Actually, I think in my case it was stress too, because I had left a very stressful job with a lot of travel. But the air we breathe is the big elephant in the room. And we have all those other things that we can address, but every day, day in and day out, we're breathing air. And the air we breathe when we sleep is even more important, because sleep is the time when our body wants to heal. When it is resting. And so if the air we're breathing when we sleep has some toxin in it that our body has to struggle with, then everything else is going to go to the wayside. And that's when I think stuff happens. So there's other toxins in the air. I'm not going to talk too really about those. There's fragrances. Some of you have smelled that in your elevator lobby. Those are toxic, yes. No air fresheners. And some people with mold decide to do air fresheners. Not a good idea. Smokestacks from forest fires, and you guys have that in this area for sure. Know that they're spraying fire retardants on forests. We reacted, my husband and I, at camp in Rocky Mountain National Park. Like our nose just drained the entire time we were there, and I saw a sign that it's okay because it's dry. Once it dries, it'll be fine. It's dried on the dust in the dirt, which is blowing through the air. And we had to leave. We went 2 hours away to Steamboat area, and we were fine. But we literally, our noses were like a faucet. It was crazy. And it's a beautiful area. It's too bad. But there's some places where maybe we just can't be there. At least not when it's windy. We talked about chemtrails yesterday. Amazing presentation by Matt. I learned a lot. And the one thing we don't talk about enough is buildings. And just one thing about the Twin Towers. So the people who were first responders there, and even the days after, they're all dying. Very serious diseases, they're dying young. Because the toxins in the stuff in our buildings is toxic. And my husband and I we've gutted buildings, and so that's part of our load. We do that. We've gutted some houses, and then we did it ourselves. But today we're going to talk about bacteria and mold in buildings, and then it comes from dampness. And you do, even in a dry place with a drought, have dampness here, because there's always moisture in the ground. And you do get rain, and when you get rain, if you get a big load in your wall, or if you have plumbing, you will have a problem. So let's talk about just the definition so we understand what it is we're dealing with so we can address it. What is building mold? It is fungus, can also be mildew. Mildew is mold. Technically, it's supposed to be on plants. The stuff you see in your bathroom that people call mildew is mold. It's not a plant or an animal. It has defined cell walls, but it doesn't have chlorophyll. So dark places, it really likes. It's not a big fan of sun. It produces by means of spores, and that's a little bit like pollen going in the air. It sends out its little babies to look for more places that are damp to land. And there's more than 100,000 species, and we'll talk more about that. And it feeds on dead organic matter. Now, a lot of people think, oh my God, fungus is so bad, why do we even have it? Well, it's nature's recycling system. We actually want this. We want to recycle all the woody debris, the leaves and branches that fall. It's a good thing. It's decay. But we don't want it in our buildings. That's the problem. Or in the air, even under our buildings, in those crawl spaces. So the conditions for mold growth, we talked about the mold, the spores, and they are everywhere. Yes, everywhere in the environment outside, but they're diluted by the atmosphere. They need oxygen, so there's not really mold growing underwater if it doesn't get exposed to oxygen. And if you put it in a sealed plastic bag, it may not thrive. Temperature between 30 and 130, well, that's everywhere we are. So those three things are everywhere we go. It needs a nutrient source, and it needs moisture. So those are the two people you usually focus on. So we're going to talk more about that. Is mold toxic? Absolutely it is. Every species might be toxic. There's species we don't know that might be toxic, and it's toxic dead or alive. So when someone says, oh, we're just going to come in and kill it. Okay, well, are you going to remove it? Because if you just kill it, one, it's only dead temporarily, and two, the dead stuff is really toxic. So some of the most toxic species I see, and people talk about are Cladosporium, Penicillium, Fusarium, Aspergillus, Stachybotrys. Is very sticky. You will never, hardly ever find this in an air test or a dust test. But if you find 1 or 2 spores of Stachybotrys, it's a very sticky, heavy mold spores. If you find that in an air dust sample, I would consider that significant. Just because if you don't find it, it doesn't go in the air. And it's a long-term water damage spore. So that's not all, though. There's, as I said before, 100,000 species. We're only testing 40. So is there a good chance that there's some species that we haven't tested that might be toxic too? So keep that in mind when you test. That even if it says nothing and you sense there might be something, don't give up. And I have tested a number of places. Our house, relatives' houses, and we find nothing and we still find the mold. So it's not 100%. So why are we not hearing more about this from in the government or the powers that be? Well, if you look at the history, we've had toxins throughout history. You know, all kinds of things that are nasty that we don't learn about as being nasty until later. At some point, you know, the doctors were promoting nicotine and smoking. What's my favorite brand? There was a point where we put DDT in wallpaper to off gas so that you could kill the bugs in your baby's room. Is that awful? And they blew DDT behind trucks to spray for mosquitoes. They didn't know, and those people are often sick today. So the history of even asbestos, if you look at the history, started in 1900, we knew it was bad. 1900. By 1926, it took 25 years for the first workman's comp claim. And then 1939, we're in another 50 years and we're going to try to ban it. In 2001, it still wasn't banned, and it's not banned today, really. We do know to be concerned about it for removal, but it takes a long time. Hopefully with social media, hopefully with the internet today, this is all going to go faster for mold. I do think mold is the asbestos of the 21st century. I think it's going to, awareness is coming. People are very, very sick. California is actually doing pretty good compared to other states in terms of what they publish. So on their documents, it says the presence of water damage, dampness, just dampness, visible mold. You don't need to test if you see mold. If you see mold, you have mold. And you can, if you can't see it, you might still have it because you can't really see it. But mold odor, if you smell mold or mustiness, absolutely 100% somewhere there's mold. But you can have mold without being able to smell it. And all those things are unhealthy. They put that in writing. So yay for California. Some of the top symptoms, and this is also what I didn't know when my daughter was sick, because she really had coughing fits and she had asthma. And it's like, well, she didn't have the eyes and just trouble breathing when she walked in our house. That wasn't the case. She was sick everywhere. But we've had this. I've had the anxiety, depression. I've had the memory loss, fatigue. GI problems was one of my issues. My daughter gets the rashes. We've had rashes. Bloody noses is a really bad one. If you see children with bloody noses all the time, be worried about that. Some other diseases that seem to be related. A lot of autoimmune conditions. So in my family of 6 people, we have 3 different autoimmune conditions we've been diagnosed with. 3 or 4, actually. Multiple sclerosis might be connected. Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. My husband's parents both got Alzheimer's, both of them at the same time after a roof leak in their house. They didn't recognize. And they're in their 80s, and they're not doing well. So be careful with this stuff. Be careful. If you feel fine one day, you may not feel fine later, the next time you go. So take precautions is my advice. Depression is obviously another one. Mood swings that I didn't have up here. But stress is another toxin that adds to all this. So who is affected? So we have all the stories about only one person is sick, so it must not be the house. Everybody else is fine. In the days of the coal miners, they would go down in the coal mine with a canary. And if the canary died because toxic fumes were getting into the mine, the canary dies, then they know they gotta get out because bad stuff is coming, they might be next. They're gonna be next. Today, our buildings have toxic air, and there's some people among us who are canaries, and we should listen to them. We should say, whoa, you're sick. That's good that we have canaries, and consider that. And people are dying. In hospitals, Seattle just had 6 children die as a lawsuit at the Children's Hospital in Seattle. You can Google it. Another one just died in Honolulu recently. So who is affected? People say 25% of the population. I don't agree with that. It's my whole family. It's not 25%. Some studies have shown 40% of people in a judicial building in Florida had symptoms. But in California alone, that's 1 million people. Even if it's just 25%. And in the United States, it's 80 million. That's a lot of people, and I think it's actually more than that. So we talked about my why, that I talk about this, but also know that it's the young who usually get affected first, babies, small children, even my 10-year-old, the elderly, my parents, my husband's parents, and other people don't notice it, or the health compromise. And health compromise could mean you're taking any kind of medication, you have any kind of autoimmune condition, people with cancer, and there is a genetic component, so we have done genetic testing, and it turns out my daughter wins the genetic lotto of getting the worst genes that I had and the worst genes my husband had. So that's a bummer. But this is my whole family. And so my daughter did get the worst genes, but she's doing good now. These are all the things that we've been dealing with since 2005. And we're doing great. So why buildings and why now? Well, this is an unintended consequence of the sustainability plan. It's a good thing, but it's not intended. We rushed into tightening our buildings, and in the process, we had buildings that were leaking that now don't dry because they're so tight. And now the air quality is bad. Plus, we use so many chemicals now in our products that contaminates here. But the water damage is from air quality, and it's about money. Nobody wants to spend money. People who are consumers. This is a hard thing it's not really hard to understand. You want the granite countertop, but do you care what's behind the wall? People naturally want that. It's human nature. So where do we get this moisture from? Because you live in dry California, so where would the moisture come from? The building occupants. We emit moisture. We emit moisture just in the air we breathe. It comes off our skin. When we cook, when we shower, all those things produce moisture. Our activities, sweating, working out. On the exterior, we have rain. Even if you only have it every once in a while, it can be significant. Sprinkler systems, they have a lot of those in dry places. And they go at night, and nobody's noticing they're sprinkling the building. And you can see a line on the building, or they wonder why they have all this mold in the inside of that wall behind their couch. Look at where your sprinkler's sprinkling. Groundwater, the dirt, even if it's dry, you're in a desert, there's moisture down there. And water vapor, and so that's the air we breathe that condenses on a cold surface. And then there's construction moisture, so we have a lot of mold in new buildings. So that's not a solution to go out and say, I'm going to get a new building, we need a good builder. And there's moisture in the processes like concrete, masonry, drywall finishing, wood painting, wood materials. Site drainage is a big deal. It's a big deal here, everywhere, here in California and everywhere. Flooding, you may not have that here, but you do have dampness. You know that. Gutters and downspouts, we're going to talk about a solution for that. Lack of gutters, all that water coming off the roof that lands right next to the foundation is sponge. It's going to take all that in, and then the water wants to dry the inside. Faulty construction, very common. We're losing our specialized labor pool. We don't have experts anymore. It's like whoever wants to pick up a hammer and needs a job that day sometimes, and we have leaky walls that can't dry. Air leakage, we talked about sprinklers. I want to just point out, so this is sprinklers, they're not hitting this building, but look at the downspouts. Do you see that? The dark color? It's kind of hard to see because of the light. But look for discoloration. Those downspouts are leaking all over that wall. Interior, we have plumbing leaks. So another thing, okay, I want to live where's the best place to live? Well, somewhere where there's no plumbing would work. Yeah, good luck with that. Overflowing sinks, toilets, humidifiers and high humidity is a problem. Hanging their clothes up. People hang their clothes up in their house to dry because they don't have a dryer. Steam from showers and cooking, condensation that occurs as a result of all those things. Exhaust fans into crawl spaces. Exhaust fans from your bathroom exhaust into your attic. Even exhaust fans out soffit vents. The soffit vent is meant to draw air in. Spitting in the wind. And try to blow warm air that wants to rise down out of the soffit right next to the air intake. Okay, it's not going to work. And it happens on high-end houses. Bath fans, dryer vents, the kitchen exhaust. So this is what happens. This is actually you can see the exhaust fan going there for the bathroom exhaust, and oh, look at all this mold coming right back in. It takes several years to see that. So if you have it, stop it now. And HVAC, heating, air conditioning, ventilation flaws, and of course people. So we do things. Building science is how to fix this, and building science is a complicated field. It does take into account materials. So we have masonry, steel, wood, concrete. Then we have to also look at the envelope. The envelope's an assembly of materials. We have the walls and the roof. And we have systems, electrical systems, plumbing systems, heating systems. All those things have to come together, and that's why this is complex. and it's not probably going to be an remediator. Even the home inspector, there's some really good ones, but their education is limited to what they learned, in the home inspection course usually. It's not enough for the complexity that we have today. So we talked about these molds for conditions that we can't change. And then, so we have a nutrient source and we have moisture. So moisture and a food source equals mold. But I had mold in my metal ductwork. And this is mold growing on the underside of a metal deck in a commercial building. So what's the food source? Dirt and dust. It's everywhere. So focusing on that mold-resistant material, if it has dirt and dust on it, mold will grow on it. So condensation is usually humidity, and dirt dust is mold. So there's no material that's immune. The wood obviously is going to be susceptible to water damage, but look at the steel. That steel's rusting and corroding. This one is in Hawaii. The wood actually looks good, but from condensation from the air conditioning inside, condensating on the cold mill stud, leads to so much water that it's actually corroding. And they removed it because there was damage to the drywall. Concrete and rebar, concrete balls, rebar rust, masonry, this masonry is actually turning to dust, and that black stuff looks pretty nasty. Stucco has to drain behind it. Big problem in California. Gets omitted. Mold growing on concrete block. On the metal supply to a toilet tank, there's mold growing there. Mold on the backside of gypsum sheathing. And of course, mold growing on wood. So it's everywhere. Dust and moisture. So if you learn one thing today, that's the takeaway, and the moisture can be in a lot of forms. So we talked about why buildings, why now. It's because buildings are so dang complicated now. We're building our buildings like Teslas, but we're building them out in the field with labor that comes and goes and answers your cell phone, and might be different from day to day. That's the problem. And the solutions aren't simple. So how to identify potential building problems. This is solutions. How we do it on time. Regular inspections. So look outside at your house. Look outside at your office building. Look outside at the school. Look for anomalies, discoloration, bubbling, and then be vigilant. If you didn't see anything yesterday, keep looking. When it does rain, look around when it's raining. Stucco in particular is very transparent for the first hour or two after it rains. Or during a rain. Go see, oh, that gutter isn't actually working. Look at all the water's dumping here against the wall. Look at this dark spot under the window in my stucco. It'll go away when the sun comes out, but at that moment, you know you have a burden that might need to be addressed. Listen to your body. So if you feel weird, if you feel anxious, if you feel like you can't sleep in a certain place, if your nose runs every time you go to grandma's house, if you smell something, and it could be only at sometimes because of the way the wind's blowing and pressure differentials, that just sometimes I smell something. Keep looking. So I built my own house, and I did end up with mold in the second house, the house that we built, which wasn't the one that had the ductwork. A very small amount, but I hired all these people and paid them lots of money, and nobody could find it. No testing could find it. But we had some test results that said my husband in particular was affected, and mine were rising, my results. And I was like, okay, there's got to be something here. And I realized that I knew more than all these people I was paying to look. And I built the house, for heaven's sake. So I started buying my own equipment, and then just said, okay, I'm just going to figure it out. It took me 6 months to figure it out, because there's nothing to see. But I ended up finding it using humidity. So we had one bathroom that had higher humidity than all the other rooms. There's a reason. Why? Why would one bathroom have higher humidity? I yelled at all the kids, told everybody's got to use the exhaust fan, and don't leave your towels in the bathroom, all that. And we went away, we came back, and it was still high. Well, the reason it was high was there was insulation that was getting wet, soaking in all the water so we couldn't see it, from a shower leak, and from a plumbing defect. I didn't watch everybody every step of the way. And that insulation was like a giant wet blanket behind the wall, that was kept trying to dry. And so now we had 70% humidity in one bathroom and 30% everybody else.
Question, so what's your humidity at home be less than 50%?
Yeah,
What was
so
the
when
question?
you're doing...
What was the question?
The question was, what should it be? And that's the next thing I'm going to talk about, is what should your humidity be? So if you're running air conditioning, and I don't know if you do that very often here, but in places like Florida, where it's very humid, the interior humidity should never be over 55. Something's wrong, whether it's with the HVAC system or in the house, if you cannot keep it below 55% humidity. And that's a lot of humidity outside. In the heating season, when you're running heat actively, when the heat is on, that's very drying, and you shouldn't be above 40. Now, in this climate, where sometimes you can open your window during the day, or you leave your windows open a lot, it's hard to measure that. I would measure this when you have a few days of having windows closed. Because if you have the windows open, you're measuring the outside air. This is a water alarm. We have some of these that we use by dishwashers and stuff, and it's got a battery. It's like $15, and it beeps if you have a leak. So you can put them under your sinks and know ahead of time that you have a leak. These are some other humidity monitors. I look at the outside humidity and the inside. So where we live, and Colorado might be a place where this might be helpful, definitely in the southeast. I look to see, my son's will be like, oh, it's 70 degrees, can we open all the windows? And then I look at the humidity, it's 95% humidity outside, because it rained. No, we're not opening the windows just yet. And then I watch the humidity outside to see, okay, it's getting better, we can open it now. But I don't like to open the windows when it's 95% humidity outside, even if the temperature is cool. These are some meters that I use. This one is really cheap. This is like $40. There's a lot, like this is a surface meter. I actually found the mold in my house behind a tile using that, even though I have this other meter, which is $400. There's a video on my website where I explain how to use this. And there's other ones you could buy. I don't get anything off of really selling that. But look for signs. If you see like you have to keep cleaning your bathroom, showers are a big leak location. Then you might have something going on there. Toilet seal leaks. And I was talking about this earlier. This is every 10 years or so, these wax rings just fail. So if your toilet's wobbling, that's a huge sign. Sometimes you don't see it. But look for signs. Then look around outside. Do you have overhangs? That's a good thing. But look at your sidewalks. If you have a sidewalk next to your house, is it tilted toward your house? Is the downspout landing on the sidewalk that's tilted towards your house? You're dumping all that water on the house. And then this one is, there's a downspout there behind the bushes. So look behind the bushes. What's going on behind the bushes? In this case, it's kind of hard to see because of the light in here, but the downspout isn't lined up with the pipe. So it seems like it was a good idea at one point, but it's not working anymore. So look at those kind of details. This is the vigilance. This is California. This is Alameda. And you can see, it's hard maybe because I don't know if you can see the contrast, but there's discoloration on the siding. It's weird, why is it there? So then you just have a question, why is it there? There's probably some problem, why it's there. There's definitely a problem, this is very common, where walls meet roofs. Very common location for problems. There's a $15 fix called kick-out flashing that people open it. Builders, architects, everybody doesn't know about it. Except some people do because I talk about it a lot. This side has the same problem, but there's this like dark spot under the soffit. Okay, there's a reason for this stuff. It's not normal. And so really you have to become a detective. You hire somebody like me or another forensic architect locally and say, what's going on here? Design flaws. Okay, yeah, look, buildings look really cool with a lot of roofs and, okay, how does the water get out of there? You know, so when it rains, you have there's a bathtub there. So if you're looking to buy a house or you're looking to own a house, rent a house, just look around. How does the water come off the roof? It's actually simple, and we can educate ourselves, and that's why I do this, is that anybody can see this stuff once I tell you what to look for. There's a lot more that I can't, in different situations, but if something's growing out of your brick, there's probably water in there that shouldn't be in there. This is California. So lanais are a big problem, but I've seen this like stuff growing out of brick on walls of buildings. When it rains, brick is also very transparent, so you'll be able to see a lot. Stucco, this is again in Alameda. This is something going on there. The lanai drains off, the water comes off, it goes into this gutter that goes to this downspout, but maybe it's not sloped properly. And maybe the water is actually dumping into the wall right here. There's more signs here under that window. So it's just getting your eye trained to look at this stuff. Now I work remotely and I work with people using pictures because I found it's almost easier to show people and to look at things with high quality pictures because you freeze the moment in time. And I can zoom in and I can see slight variations that are hard to see because the sun is moving around and a cloud comes by and branches move. So, but look around for things, like I said, roofs meet walls is a big deal, rotted wood obviously. This is a bathroom in Alameda, you know, that's mold, concrete. See the end grain here, if you can see that it's slightly dark. I apologize for this light up here. Wood likes to take water at end grain. And so we talked about the downspouts. A very simple fix is extending the downspouts away from the house. But make sure that the ground next to the house is not lower than where the downspout is. And that the water's just gonna go here and go, I'm just going back over here. And the downspouts far enough. But people who don't have downspouts in particular, this is always the case. Now this is showing a basement. This is the same problem whether you're in a basement, a crawl space, or a slab. Because concrete is a giant sponge. The water will soak into the concrete and then it will always dry to the drier side, which is always where we live, compared to the ground. Another code requirement that gets overlooked is that you should see 6 to 8 inches of foundation above the ground. You can all go home and look at your homes today. You probably don't have it. People put wood chips in. And then from there, it needs to slope away. Down 6 inches and 10 feet is the number. Now slabs, this is actually a church in the Midwest. And we had a reaction. We went to this church, and I had a reaction, and came back out and was like, what is going on in this place on the outside wall? And you can see there's no gutters, the water comes off the roof, and they dump the water right here. And you can see the water, this is called rising damp, rising up into this masonry wall with a slab. It's like this. It's probably deeper because it's Chicago. But they have some impermeable floor covering that's trapping the water on the concrete, but actually growing mold underneath it. And they had ducks in their base, in their slab, which is the worst thing ever. But it was me and a few other people coughing throughout the whole service. It's like, okay, well, we know who the canaries are here. So this slope is really critical. This slope, this distance. Because if this ground gets saturated here, and that's why I say look when it rains. You can see, is there a puddle when it's actually raining or right after? Oh, that's not good. I need to have a landscaper come over and we need to not have that puddle there. So we're getting near the end here. Mold toxins are in food also, so I don't want to negate that. We have not only fixed where we live and our air, know that one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. So if you're not making your own apple juice or you're feeding apple juice to your kids and we have possibly a mold problem, you might want to consider that. But any kind of grain. So a lot of people who recover from mold illness have to stop eating any grains at all. That includes corn, rice, wheat, oats, or coffee. I get a lot of people like, I've done everything. Well, have you stopped drinking coffee? No, I can't possibly do that. I get it. I didn't ever drink coffee, my husband did. And he got much better when we got rid of coffee. And it's partially because the beans carry mold, and then somebody will say, oh, but I buy this mold-free kind of coffee. Well, it's also a big adrenal stressor. So when you've been exposed to mold, your adrenals are trashed anyway. So it's a stimulant, and we're addicted. It's probably not, we should probably consider that. But look at how it's being stored and shipped. We're just trying to find a safe home to live in. You know, you think these silos and the backs of trains and cargo holds on boats are safe? You know, free of mold? I think no. So this goes to another level when you look at nut butters, peanuts, roasted peanuts in particular. If you're exposed to mold, don't eat that. And then it goes even farther to say, you are what you eat. So if you're choosing meat that isn't pasture raised and it's eating moldy grains, then it ends up in the meat. And I've noticed that personally, that if I eat some chicken, it's like, whoa, that was not good for me. And I don't know where the chicken came from, so I think that my chicken might not have eaten something good. So this is my husband and my daughter. It never goes away. This was last year. My daughter was living in France, so it's everywhere. And in the south of France, in Marseille, she had mold in her apartment. Her mother does this, and she didn't look up at the ceiling in the bathroom, and she got to it. So she called crying, was very sick, on her own, living there, and my husband got on a plane to go help her, and they're cleaning. But my goal for you is just, if you've been there, if you get there, you can come out. Just keep moving forward one step at a time. And you can find wellness. This is her texting afterwards. She had these rashes and she did have her eyes swell shut, so she couldn't even go to work. So these are her texts saying, going back to work finally, because we figured it out and we got rid of it. She had to move. So I do have some non-toxic solutions. She had bed bugs too, So, and it was more than just mold. But she fortunately has symptoms that she can't deny. Thank God. So she doesn't try to stay because she can't function. This is me this summer. You get this stuff in your body and all these toxins, it has to come out. I did a detox diet and I had almost 4 or 5 months of this stuff coming out of my chest. It must have been in my lungs. It was really nasty. And so that's why I ended up going to the doctor, because everybody was all up in arms that it's probably my lung scarring too. But we're doing great. I even have another daughter-in-law since this picture. So we're doing the things we want to do, so have hope, but know that there's going to be a lot of people that you're probably going to need to get help from, support you. We eat no gluten, no dairy, dairy is inflammatory, no sugar, no alcohol, bummer, and no coffee, all those things, and only organic tea. No toxic personal products. I make my own shampoo now. I stopped coloring my hair because it was toxic. So I was just whatever I could do to take out of my bucket for me. Water, we actually drink distilled water. I don't know if that's the right thing, but that's what we've been doing. Exercise, moving your limbs is good, whatever you can do. Getting sleep is important, but clean air is the big kahuna. That no matter what other good things we do, if we don't have clean air, I feel like it's a really huge burden and it might be hard to recover. So just a summary of this, we talked about what building mold is and that it requires moisture and could be anywhere because of dirt and dust. Who's affected? Could be everybody, but definitely small children and the elderly and anybody with any kind of immune compromised situation. People with allergies taking steroids, or that's a compromise. Why buildings? Why now? The sustainability movement. It's not going away. We're not going to move to drafty buildings. We do have to figure out how to build quality buildings, and that's what my main focus is, other than education and awareness. And we talked about how to identify some problems. So hopefully you have takeaways to take from here and go straight to wherever you need to go and start looking around. Look everywhere. I take pictures everywhere I go. My husband, we stop at a stoplight. I'm like, wait, I gotta take a picture of that building because I see something. In California in particular, crawl spaces and site grading are big. Openings, especially in Ciecko, are incorrectly done. That's windows and door openings, so look around those. And those balconies and lanais are decks rarely done correctly. So this does require a team, typically. So I work with people remotely, and it's always good if they have local people also that they can work with. So I collaborate with other architects or builders, if the case that you want to know that they're open to that. That would be a good thing. But I'm on other teams with people that bring in the right. It's complicated stuff. And then I just ask you to do what I'm doing. Is if you get better, and you will get better, believe that you will get better. Positive thoughts are important. Then turn around and help somebody else. Tell somebody else. And not everybody wants to know, but there are people who want to know. And there's, just like me going to that one CU course that changed my daughter's life and my life. If I didn't go there, So you feel moved to go to something like this event here that we're at, go. There's something good, listen to that intuition. And so resources, more to learn. I obviously can't go everything I know in an hour or even in 2. So I record webinars, I bring on guest speakers, and I offer those recorded. So you get an hour of me talking about other topics. And I have resource PDFs. I'm starting a membership site where you can access, just so I can start putting all my resources in one place and people can access them. I do use organic and natural solutions, particularly for cleaning. So I am affiliated with a professional environmental scientist named Dr. Ed Close. He's in his 80s. He's not doing very much lately around mold, but his wife passed away recently. So, but he's a PhD scientist and a professional engineer. And we had an issue where I felt like the air was compromised because of our really good remediation. And I reached out to him, and I continue to use his products, which are essential oil-based. And there's a whole protocol, and I have some brochures on the products here. But he wrote a book, and we were talking about this earlier. This is the book that is his science studies around this. And then I have PDFs that I'm happy to share if you email me of that I've created, assembling my resources, because I research high and low before I do anything. Dr. Close's roommate in college actually was Dr. David Stewart, who is another PhD scientist. He is infirm, he's also in his 80s. But this book, the chemistry of essential oils, it sounds like a drag. I started reading it thinking it helped me sleep. And it was really good and really interesting, so I recommend that one too. I do have a course that will be launching again in March. It's how to build a safe home. And it is, you do it on your own, it's recorded, it's basically 6 hours of the course material recorded, me just doing this for 6 hours on a bunch of different topics in little snippets. So they range from 5 to 7, I think the longest might be 20 minutes. And then I have PDFs and associated with those, and then Q&As that I've done. I've been doing it for a while now, so we record a lot of the Q&As. And any Q&A I do, especially for that course, I'm taking pictures, I get the questions in advance, and I make a presentation with more pictures, because it's hard to talk about this without pictures. And so it's these 6 modules is what I go through in that course. Site is really important, building basics, the design, foundation fundamentals. You can find all this on my website, roofs, walls, and then contracts. Get the contract right. There's one thing I can advise you on doing a contract with anybody. Have the contract say that all construction debris will be removed. Just say that one thing. People are leaving construction debris, they're using the duct system when they do drywall work. Drywall is silica dust. It doesn't ever come out of lungs. Silicosis is a known hazard. So that's debris they should be getting out of, and if they leave your ductwork full of silica, then they gotta replace it. If they can't get it out, which they won't really be able to do, or your furnace. So like I said, there's a lot of hours of Q&A. So I do remote services and consulting everywhere, and I have a lot of resources, and I do presentations like this if that's ever an organization that you think could benefit from it. Sometimes I do them remotely. So I've spoken with Western Price, and there's a webinar on their site. And who else did I do one with? Actually, I did one with Liz, I did one with a Western Price group here in California like 3 years ago. And I did it remotely. Because using the tools I use, you can see each other, and you can talk, and it's really pretty good. I have 2 Facebook groups, Avoiding Water Damage, Mold, and Toxins. So the way I started this was in I was researching health, to be honest, on the internet and on social media, and then I started seeing what people were saying about their buildings. I was like, no, don't do that. And so I started answering questions and contributing, and little by little I started getting tagged. I became known, and then people started messaging me and texting me, and it became way too much. So I said, okay, I'm going to do a Facebook group, and then I'll answer people's questions there for free, and everybody can see the results. And so that'll be my way to get back. Well, that group has almost 3,000 people in it right now, and it's only been 2 years, and it just keeps growing. So I try to get on it, and people tag me, but it's really hard because it's really big. Chronic Hope Network, I talk about health stuff there, I share health stuff there. My LinkedIn page, you can link in with me, especially if you're a professional. I share things there too. This is my website. I have 2 right now, avoidingmold.com and CherylCiecko.com. And now we can do questions. So if you have any questions, and most of the time there's something.
Not so much questions.
Is it on? Is it on?
But anyways, not so much questions, but comments. In my own personal house, the builder used pine around the windows instead of redwood. Well, pine only lasts about 7 years. And we ended up having a problem there. But the other problem was they took the stucco and went right up to the wood instead of having a clean cut and putting the caulking in between. So allowing the water to get in.
Yeah, so a couple things. Caulk is not a moisture management technique. So that is, you want to caulk, but that shouldn't be your moisture management layer because caulk fails. It's a secondary tool, but it's not. There should be another layer behind there that's collecting the water to drain it away.
There was. I also sold appliances, and I was dumbfounded when I saw exhaust fans for the stove that literally the air comes back into the place. I'm like, I can't believe they sell this, you know.
I can't believe it either.
Yeah. And then the last thing is one of my neighbors had a roof leak, and she's like, I don't know what to fix first, my walls or my roof. I said, your roof.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it was common sense. If you don't take care of where the source is, you're going to still have the problem with the walls.
Right. Good point. Yeah, start with the roof and the foundation is usually where I go.
Yes, I was wondering, it seems like a lot of these rooms that we stayed in don't smell very well and that they might have some mold in them too. My question is there anything we can take or put in our bodies internally to help deal with the mold problem or to help remove the mold?
So the tools that I would use are a couple. One, when I rent, I'm always looking for cleanliness reviews on hotels that I stay at, and if they have operable windows. Because if you can open the windows, you can try to air it out, or you can sleep with the windows open, that can be helpful. If they have no carpeting, that's a real bonus, and some newer ones are coming up with that. In terms of what we do with our bodies, drinking lemon water, anything you can do to detox and really focusing on the diet. So my daughter, she was in college. But when she wanted to stay in her moldy college apartment, second semester senior year, and she was starting to be sick and she was starting to have rashes, we said, okay, this week you gotta eat salads, no drinking, no alcohol, and sleep and get exercise. So you have to be on the cleanest clean of everything else you can do at that point. We do some things, there's portable air purifiers. I have one that's like a shelf size. And then I do things with essential oils that we've done in hotel rooms. You have to make sure initially though that you're okay with the essential oil. We were actually one case in Missouri, the room was so nasty. We walked in, and it's midnight though, and there were no other rooms, and you walk in and the air conditioning was just like, oh my God. But it was 90 degrees outside and 90% humidity. And we just needed to get through the night. And I had a diffuser in my car, and so there's this protocol that Dr. Close uses that I kind of retrofitted and actually diffused essential oils while we were sleeping. My husband and I had been exposed to it. We did herpes the first time we were exposed to it slightly, but we knew that we were okay. My two kids were with me, and I don't know how they were going to be, but I figured we'd be sick anyway. So we tried it on a reduced amount. It was very turned down, but it was intermittent, and we slept for 6 hours, 7 hours, got up and left, and we were fine from both the oil and the mold in the room. I don't know. That's what I would try. That is something we try.
So is there more information on all this?
Yeah, on the essential oils. Yeah, I have another website on the essential oils, but I would email me and I'll send you a bunch of stuff. There's a video that of Dr. Close presenting.
Yeah.
Oh, I have some brochures right here too. That here, this is the product that I.
Thank you.
And my card's on the back.
Okay, the last question is, once you're exposed to mold, what's the duration or when's the least amount of time that you could start experiencing, symptoms? What's your,
You know,
it
that's,
varies a lot.
everybody's different.
Yeah.
You know, the question is how long until you get it, you notice it. Some people notice it the minute they walk in. I've gone and I used to inspect people's homes on site, and I try not to do that anymore. And I feel okay when I'm in there, and then I go home and I feel lousy for the next 3 days. So it's really hard to tell, and it depends on what you're exposed to and all. There's not a, so just know it could be either. You could walk in and go, whoa, my eyes are running, or you could be fine, but then start going, I'm so tired, or my digestive system isn't working all of a sudden, or I'm feeling kind of depressed. You know, it's some really subtle symptoms.
Yeah, I hear you. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, thank you so much for this presentation. Actually, my parents' house had a mold problem, a pretty bad one. Actually, but oddly enough, I felt better there than I did in my own house.
Yeah, so lots of times I see people, they go one place to another, and they go from a mold place to another mold place. And I would go wherever you feel best. There's some species that you might be exposed more to one.
It was rural. It was a rural area, so it was a quantum difference for me.
Yeah, but it could be the outside too. I mean, like we've seen at this event, there's like so many things that could be contributing, like I said about Rocky Mountain National Park. So I would just try to, we're retiring, or my husband's retired, and I'm gonna go anywhere because I can work remotely. We're trying to figure out where to go. And it's gonna be probably a lot of air quality.
My question is, so I did a Swiffer test. What is the best mold test to do on a house? I personally spent, it wasn't much money, it was like $240 for a Swiffer dust test, which indicated a lot of water molds, and it was extraordinarily high for their house. But that wasn't professional, so they ended up hiring a building biologist who did an amazing job. But they basically spent $900, which is fine because my parents have money and they can do that, and which is good, but not everyone can. So then it was a really bad situation. And I actually knew about this because we had a building biologist for something else, and I saw the mold, and they didn't do anything about it until I had to go test personally a couple months later. But I was wondering if the Swiffer test is the best indicator, which is what I did initially, because the building biologist used an air test which differentiated between different rooms. And then, so question one is, what is the best test? Question two is, with mold remediation, do you use that with your home equity insurance? Or do you bypass your home equity insurance because you might lose your home insurance because it's difficult to get home insurance? That's my mom's question.
Okay, all right, so there's two questions, and I'm going to try to go through this. We have a few more questions, and I know we're running out of time. The question on testing. Dust testing is often called Hertzby or ERMI testing, and you take dust as a test of history. It's a screening test. Air testing is a screening test too. You test I recommend 10 minutes. I would never test for less than 10 minutes, but it's 10 minutes. It's not, 24 hours. And what they catch in the air 10 minutes, it's one moment in time at one place. The dust you collected was dust in that place. Now, either one, if you get a positive result, that's positive. Even if you did it yourself. So I wouldn't probably I think the step I would take next is to do a building eval. You gotta start looking for the cause. The problem with all this testing is it doesn't tell you anything about what's causing it. And it's often more than one place. So that's why I say, if you see mold, the first step should be, I need a building inspection. I do second opinions on building inspection.
They did do that, and so good for them. It's going to cost them $15,000.
For the building inspection?
No, they had the inspection, but it's going to cost them to do the remediation $15,000. That's why my mom's going to take home either a home equity loan or, but some people.
Yeah, insurance usually doesn't pay for long-term damage. It pays for an event. And so unless you have a pipe leak, don't even bother going to insurance. But you know what your insurance will cover and read your policy. But generally, no. Some of the protocols I use, Dr. Close did find them to be much cheaper than traditional remediators, but you did have to manage that. You'd have to really learn about the protocol.
I say because I know with the roof, just a very quick question, with roof leaks and stuff, that I have neighbors and they spent $50,000. And then the roof didn't work again, and then spend another $50,000.
Well, so I would talk to me. Consultation with me at the very beginning before you make all the mistakes, because I will tell you what the defects are that I can see, and if you have somebody on site do an inspection, I can review that and then add. I've never seen a building inspection report that I didn't add something to. So start with the defects and don't jump in and clean until you really feel comfortable that you are fixed.
I think
you know what all the bugs are and what the right solution is.
I think the issue for some people is that it's a bottomless hole of money, and so some people will not say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do any remediation at zero, because I'm not going to spend $100K.
Yeah, well, people do that. I mean,
Yeah.
they have the right to do that. So we should get to the next question so we can. Thank you.
My question is, in your doc work, do you have any recommendations for vendors in the Southern California area that you trust that can clean your ducts?
Okay, so I have a guy. So number one, I have a webinar on duct cleaning that I did in January. And I brought on a duct cleaner that I use and respect. And so that is a really good one to watch. Because I do think whatever we do, we kind of have to know what they're supposed to do. He gives people recommendations for other places. So he's well connected in the industry.
What's his name?
His name is Vito Moscato. And so if you go to my website and you look for that webinar, even if you don't buy the webinar, you'll see his name, you can look him up. Or he's in my Facebook group too. But, or email me and I'll give you his contact information. You can reach out to him and see who he knows.
In the local area?
Yeah. So he does certification for other people, for other professionals that do duct cleaning, and you do want it certified. But that webinar in particular, I go through how to hire, who to hire, what the certifications mean, what they should be doing, all that stuff. So that's a good value, a really good value. So many for it now, but it's an hour of, and then Q&A. I think we went an hour and a half on it.
Okay, good. And then the second part, information on essential oils.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was asking you.
Yeah, my card's in the back.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks so much for the presentation, especially referencing the proper structural designs. I think that's very practical and helpful to a lot of people. I get some questions sometimes from when I give presentations on crawl space, plastic lining. I mean, this is a big business in the Bay Area because especially we have a lot of hills and there's a lot of walking. The ground, the aquifer is very close to the ground. And so a lot of people want to know, how about putting plastic lining over their dirt crawl space? So that the water doesn't go into their house. So
that's actually code. It's called the vapor barrier.
The vapor. So I wanted to ask you, that was the first question. The second question I asked is bleach substitute, because a lot of people want to do it themselves when there's, like let's say just mold in their showers. And I don't recommend bleach, but
yeah, no, I don't recommend that either.
Okay, I've been trying boric acid, but I personally think just rubbing it out on a regular basis with a brush. But I wanted to see what your
the truth is any detergent will wash the surface of dust. The problem is the roots that get into it, and so you don't want to use a lot of water because bleach. The problem with bleach is bleach evaporates in the water, which is 97% of bleach. Soaks in and he basically watered all the roots. It looks great for temporary. I use these essential oil products because they soak in. And for people that are already using them, it is a Young Living product. I do offer discounted consulting for people on that who already already use that product. Otherwise, I help people that buy them through me and consult on the cleaning. So I use that for cleaning because the essential oils. I have a bunch of science that I share related to that. Tea tree oil might work. The one I use has eucalyptus, clove, lemon, rosemary, and cinnamon in it. But there's two blends that Dr. Close researched that were good. I can't remember what's in the other one, but it's something's different. Lavender is known to be, so my research has shown lavender, but definitely eucalyptus, clove, cinnamon are all antifungal. Lavender is antifungal. But it's how you use them to really make a difference. And so that's what I tend to help people with.
And the last question I have, besides that plastic line, what you thought about
vapor barrier, we didn't get to that. So vapor barriers go under a slab, and they go under, and they're doing them wrong in a lot of places in California. It's a whole nother, it's in my course. But it's basically, it's plastic, but it's a heavy plastic. So get the highest mil plastic possible, like 10 mil. It needs to be sealed, and it needs to be sealed to the walls. So we're living in tight houses, and that dirt's full of mold spores. Decomposition makes dirt by fungus. So the dirt's full of mold. We don't want that in our living space and our airspace. So if your ductwork is in the crawl space in particular, that's a big problem. But the crawl spaces do get damp, and so and there are companies that do that. Just research them closely and have them teach you what the right way to do is, how they're going to do it, and what's code. There are code requirements around this.
Do you do recommend that?
Yes,
Cover
absolutely.
the dirt. And so the final question was, do you have any references for the chronic illnesses that you reference that's linked to mold exposure? Some of the more obscure ones, like I never heard of, like Alzheimer's.
Oh yeah, I do have some I can send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so email me and I'll send you what I have.
Well, I had a house inspection, and it shows that I had mold in a rug, in an area rug under my head. So the rug's gone now, and there's a hardwood floor underneath that rug. And it had, in some areas, it wasn't. Once I had it cleaned, there was like a roughness in the surface of the wood in some areas, so I assumed that was where the mold penetrated into the floor somewhat. So I tried scraping that down with just a textured sponge, and it really did help, but it was a fair amount of vigor. I got most of it, I didn't get all of it.
Can I ask you what was under the wood? What's under the wood?
The crawl space.
Crawl space.
Subflooring.
Subflooring. Do you have a vapor barrier in your crawl space?
No, I don't.
All right, so what happens in the crawl space is the moisture in the crawl space migrates up through the floor. And so what I think happened in your situation, and I'm just guessing because, but it is a kind of typical situation, is that your rug acted as a vapor barrier. And your rug, and this happens a lot, it happens on slabs too, where the rug and the pad act as a vapor barrier, keeping moisture down. So the moisture is coming up from the crawl space, it comes through the wood, and then it gets trapped on the underside of the plastic, or on the side of the rug, or under the carpeting, or whatever's under the carpeting. Carpet itself is mostly plastic, the fibers, unless it's wool, but it's trapping moisture. And then the water and the moisture just sat there. It just couldn't go any farther, it got trapped. So people on slab, you can tape a piece of plastic down, like a square, 1 foot square, tape it to your slab, and you'll see, there's water coming through, the little droplets show. But in this case, I think what happened is your carpet, you have a lot of moisture in your crawl space because it isn't sealed, the ground isn't sealed, and that one location trapped the moisture, which is why you had it in your rug. I wouldn't be too worried about the wood itself, though.